Welcome to our International Student Brief program. Today, we delve into some fascinating stories making waves around the globe. First up, Canada is making headlines with its plan to restore citizenship rights to lost Canadians, those born abroad to Canadian parents who also happen to be born outside of Canada. This move is seen as a monumental step to rectify past injustices and ensure future generations don't face the same predicament. Next, for students in the United States, there's a bit of a financial shocker as interest rates on federal student loans are set to rise to 6.53%, the highest level in over a decade. This increase will affect undergraduates, graduates, and professional students alike, making the cost of borrowing for education even steeper. Lastly, over in the UK, universities may soon face stringent new rules regarding the recruitment of foreign students. Institutions with high dropout rates or low enrollment numbers could lose their right to recruit internationally, part of a broader crackdown on immigration. Please stay tuned for more detailed coverage on these stories and more. Guardian. Canada is set to restore the right of citizens born abroad to pass their citizenship to children also born outside the country, following a court ruling that deemed the first-generation limit unconstitutional. The federal government has announced amendments to the Citizenship Act, removing the second-generation cutoff introduced by the previous Conservative government. This change comes after an Ontario court ruled in December that the limit was unconstitutional. Immigration Minister Mark Miller emphasized the need for fairness, stating, "Not everyone is entitled to citizenship, but for those who are, it needs to be fair." The previous Conservative rule, enacted in 2009, had led to a generation of lost Canadians by preventing citizens born abroad from passing their citizenship to their children born outside Canada. The new bill requires that Canadians born abroad must have spent at least 3 years in Canada to pass on citizenship, addressing concerns from critics who argue that many immigrants leave Canada after obtaining passports. Jenny Kwan, a member of Parliament and immigration critic, hailed the bill as a historic day for lost Canadians, highlighting the significant hardships caused by the previous law. The Toronto Star. In a monumental victory for lost Canadians, the Canadian government has introduced legislation to restore citizenship rights to those born abroad to Canadian parents who were also born abroad. This move comes after a successful constitutional challenge and a court ruling that deemed the second-generation cutoff rule unconstitutional. The proposed changes, outlined in Bill C-71, would automatically grant Canadian citizenship to individuals born abroad if their Canadian parent meets a residency requirement of 1,095 cumulative days in Canada. Advocate Don Chapman described the legislation as monumental with huge ramifications. The previous rule, introduced in 2009 by the Conservative government, denied citizenship to the second generation born abroad, leading to a generation of lost Canadians. Immigration Minister Mark Miller emphasized the need for fairness and transparency in citizenship laws. The government faces a court-stipulated deadline to implement the new scheme, and Miller acknowledged that an extension might be necessary, potentially causing further delays for affected families. The Toronto Star. The federal government has introduced legislation to restore citizenship rights to lost Canadians born outside Canada, following a court ruling that deemed the previous rules unconstitutional. The new legislation would automatically confer Canadian citizenship on individuals born abroad to a Canadian parent who was also born abroad before the changes are enacted. For those born after the new law takes effect, a substantial connection test will be required, with the parent needing to have spent at least 1,095 days in Canada. Advocate Don Chapman hailed the legislation as monumental, emphasizing its significant impact. The previous rule, introduced in 2009 by the Conservative government, created a generation of lost Canadians by denying citizenship to the second generation born abroad. Immigration Minister Mark Miller highlighted the importance of fairness in citizenship laws, while NDP immigration critic Jenny Kwan criticized the opposition Conservatives for filibustering similar changes. The government is working to meet the court-stipulated deadline, but an extension may be necessary to avoid further delays for affected families. New York Times. This year has been particularly tough for college applicants, starting with delays in financial aid offers due to issues with a crucial federal form. Now, students and families face another hurdle. The cost of borrowing for college is set to rise to the highest rate in over a decade. The interest rate on new federal student loans for undergraduates will jump to 6.53% from July 1, up from 5.5% this year. Rates for graduate and professional students will increase to 8.08%. While PLUS loans for parents of undergraduates and graduate students will climb to 9.08%. These rates are based on a formula set by Congress, which includes the high yield on the 10-year Treasury note from a May auction plus a fixed added rate. Financial aid expert Mark Kantrowitz noted that while these rates are steep compared to recent years, they are still lower than the 14% rates seen in the early 1980s. The new rates apply to loans borrowed between July 1 and June 2025 and remain fixed for the life of the loan. CBC. Immigration Minister Mark Miller is set to introduce legislation today that could extend citizenship to some children born outside Canada. This move addresses a long-standing issue stemming from a 2009 law change by the Conservative government, which prevented Canadian parents born abroad from passing down their citizenship unless their child was born in Canada. Amendments to the Citizenship Act in 1977 and 2009 also led to thousands of people born abroad losing their Canadian citizenship, creating a group known as Lost Canadians. Last year, the Ontario Superior Court ruled that the current system unconstitutionally creates two classes of Canadians and gave the government until June 19 to rectify the situation. The specifics of how the government plans to determine if individuals have a sufficient connection to Canada to warrant citizenship remain unclear. The Globe and Mail. Immigration Minister Mark Miller is poised to table a bill today that aims to extend citizenship to certain children born abroad, addressing a significant issue that has left many without citizenship rights. The 2009 law change by the Conservative government made it so that Canadian parents born abroad could not pass their citizenship to their children unless the children were born in Canada. This, along with amendments to the Citizenship Act in 1977 and 2009, stripped thousands of people born abroad of their Canadian citizenship, leading to the term Lost Canadians. The Ontario Superior Court ruled last year that this system unconstitutionally created two classes of Canadians and mandated that the government resolve the issue by June 19. However, it remains to be seen how the government will define a significant connection to Canada for the purpose of granting citizenship. Telegraph. Universities in the UK could face losing the right to recruit foreign students as part of a stringent migration crackdown. The Home Secretary, James Cleverly, and the Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, have announced measures targeting institutions with high dropout rates or those failing to ensure students enroll after being offered a place. The crackdown aims to address concerns that some universities are accepting low-quality students who use their courses as a means to enter the UK. Among the new measures are more rigorous English tests, increased financial requirements for students, and rules to curb rogue agents. Universities must meet specific standards, such as maintaining a visa refusal rate below 10% and ensuring at least 90% of students enroll and over 85% complete their courses. Failure to comply could result in losing the license to sponsor overseas students, a significant income source that supports UK students and research. The Toronto Star. Canada is set to restore citizenship rights to Lost Canadians born abroad, following a court order and new legislation introduced by the federal government. The proposed law will automatically grant Canadian citizenship to individuals born abroad to a Canadian parent who was also born abroad, as well as to children adopted by Canadian parents beyond the first generation. This move addresses the issues stemming from the first-generation limit, which has prevented many with genuine connections to Canada from obtaining citizenship. Immigration Minister Mark Miller emphasized that the current rules have unacceptable consequences for families, affecting where they choose to live, work, and raise children. The new legislation requires parents born abroad to have spent at least 1,095 cumulative days in Canada before their child's birth or adoption to pass on citizenship. However, with a court-imposed deadline looming, the Immigration Department may need to seek an extension, potentially delaying citizenship for affected individuals. The Toronto Star. Immigration Minister Mark Miller is set to introduce legislation extending citizenship rights to children born outside Canada, addressing the plight of Lost Canadians. These individuals were affected by changes to the Citizenship Act in 1977 and 2009, which prevented Canadian parents born abroad from passing down their citizenship unless their child was born in Canada. This led to thousands losing their Canadian citizenship. Last year, the Ontario Superior Court ruled that the current system unconstitutionally creates two classes of Canadians, giving the government until June 19 to rectify the issue. It remains unclear how the government will determine whether individuals have a significant connection to Canada to justify granting citizenship. This legislative move follows Ottawa's decision not to challenge the court ruling, opting instead to repeal the existing law and introduce a constitutionally compliant bill. Telegraph. Workers who have embraced the newfound flexibility of remote working, especially those who have moved abroad to work from idyllic locations like beaches, could face a hefty surprise in the form of double taxation. Accountants warn that while the pandemic has led to a significant shift in workplace dynamics, allowing more than a third of employers to permit staff to work outside the UK, this freedom comes with financial risks. Employees might find themselves liable for income tax both in their home country and in the country they are working from, along with additional social security payments. Companies, too, could be on the hook for local corporation taxes if their employees' activities establish a permanent establishment abroad. Despite these risks, the trend persists, with flexible working becoming increasingly common in both the private and public sectors. However, this shift has also led to concerns about declining customer service levels, as evidenced by the significant number of revenue and customs staff failing to report to the office. Guardian. Nigerian students at Teesside University in the UK are facing a dire situation after being ordered to leave the country due to unpaid tuition fees, a consequence of the dramatic crash in the value of Nigeria's naira. The university, adhering to visa sponsorship rules, withdrew these students from their courses and reported them to the Home Office. Despite efforts to offer bespoke payment plans, the financial strain proved too much for many, leading to protests and accusations of heartlessness against the institution. The economic crisis in Nigeria, marked by nearly 30% inflation and skyrocketing prices of essential goods, has left many students unable to fulfill their financial obligations. One student, Adenike Ibrahim, who had almost completed her dissertation, shared her distress at being forced to leave despite having paid 90% of her fees. The Home Office maintains that visa sponsorship decisions lie with the educational institutions, emphasizing the importance of compliance with immigration regulations. The Independent. Health experts are raising alarms over a dangerous drinking trend known as Borg, or blackout rage gallons, which has gained popularity among Gen Z college students. This trend involves carrying around gallon-sized jugs filled with a potent mix of vodka, water, flavor enhancers, and electrolyte powders. The concoction, often containing around 17 standard drinks worth of alcohol, poses serious risks of alcohol poisoning. The trend, fueled by social media platforms like TikTok, has seen students not only at college parties but also high schoolers engaging in this risky behavior. The creative aspect of naming and personalizing their Borgs adds to its appeal. However, the unregulated nature of alcohol consumption in these jugs makes it difficult to control intake, leading to dangerous levels of binge drinking. The National Institute of Health, NIH, highlights that such excessive drinking far exceeds the standard definitions of binge drinking, posing significant health risks. Telegraph. Ebrahim Raisi, the hardline Iranian president known as the Butcher of Tehran, met a tragic end at 63 in a helicopter crash. A former judge, Raisi's rise to power was marked by a controversial and blatantly rigged election in 2021, overshadowing the reformist agenda of his predecessor, Hassan Rouhani. Sporting a gray beard and black turban, Raisi was a loyal disciple of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei and quickly ascended the judiciary ranks after the Islamic Revolution. His dark legacy includes his role in the 1988 Death Commission that led to the extrajudicial execution of thousands of political dissidents. Despite denying involvement, these actions earned him his infamous nickname. Raisi's presidency was characterized by a return to the uncompromising tenets of the Islamic Republic's revolutionary founders, marked by a crackdown on dissent, tightening of morality laws, and a confrontational stance towards the West. His tenure saw widespread protests following the death of Mahsa Amini, which were brutally suppressed, resulting in hundreds of deaths and thousands of arrests. Internationally, Raisi exacerbated Middle Eastern tensions through proxy groups, though Iran's crippled economy limited its capacity for full-scale conflict. Born in Mashdad, Raisi's life was steeped in theocratic ambition, culminating in his presidency and speculation about his potential to succeed Khamenei as supreme leader. However, his journey was abruptly ended in a helicopter incident in East Azerbaijan province. The Sydney Morning Herald. The University of Sydney is on the brink of becoming a majority foreign student institution, with 46% of its enrollments now coming from overseas. The university's financial health is robust, as evidenced by a $353 million surplus in 2023, bolstered by strong investment returns and a significant influx of international student fees. This marks a notable recovery from its record $1 billion surplus in 2021. The university's international student body, comprising 31,429 students, has grown by 3.6% from the previous year and 41% since 2018, making it Australia's largest educator of international students. Vice-Chancellor Mark Scott highlighted the institution's strategic planning in managing international student growth, especially in light of federal government plans to cap university enrollments. Despite its financial success, the university has faced challenges, including the underpayment of casual academics, which has now been estimated at up to $70 million. Scott expressed regret over these underpayments and committed to rectifying the issue. The broader landscape for regional universities remains challenging, with strong labor markets and cost of living pressures impacting domestic student enrollments. Nevertheless, the University of Sydney's strong financial performance and strategic foresight position it well for future stability and growth. The Globe and Mail reports that Immigration Minister Mark Miller has introduced Bill C-71, aiming to restore citizenship rights to lost Canadians, individuals who lost their Canadian citizenship due to a 2009 law change under Stephen Harper's government. This new bill will allow Canadians born abroad to pass on their citizenship to their children, even if those children are also born outside Canada. Don Chapman, a prominent advocate for this change and a lost Canadian himself, hailed the bill as a historic move to correct past injustices. Chapman, who lost his citizenship as a child when his family moved to the United States, only regained it as an adult. The bill follows a ruling by Ontario's Superior Court of Justice deeming it unconstitutional to deny Canadians born abroad the right to pass on their citizenship. The new legislation, backed by the NDP and Green Party, will permit parents born outside Canada to confer citizenship on their children if they have spent at least 1,095 days in Canada. It will also allow citizenship for adopted children under similar conditions. This change is expected to benefit many Canadians, including those whose children were born just a few kilometers away in the United States or in Indigenous communities straddling the border. Catherine Burton, a First Nations Canadian, shared her relief at the bill's introduction, as her sons, born abroad like her, were initially denied Canadian citizenship. Now, they have been granted the right to Canadian passports. Chapman noted that while the exact number of new citizens is unclear, many lost Canadians are already residing in Canada. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.